Hey, everybody, welcome to the first episode of Spotlight. Spotlight is a podcast where we showcase people in the baseball community, players, coaches, people in business, anything you could want to learn more about baseball and get more involved with the game that we all love. My name is Josh Band. I'm the founder and owner of Play Crate. I have an awesome guest today. There's no mistake why this person is my number one guest on the first podcast for Spotlight. His name is Matt Antonelli. He's the owner of Antonelli Baseball. He has an amazing YouTube page at Antonelli Baseball, an amazing Instagram page, but so much more than that. He has a great AU program. He was a first rounder. He played in the big leagues. He has so much to teach all of us. So without further ado, welcome, Matt. Great to have you on again. I know we've had a lot of these chats, but I'm super excited to get into it.
Thank you. I feel pretty special that I am your first guest.
And you should probably feel pretty comfortable at this point because we've had lots and lots of talks. So I'm really glad it finally materialized into the podcast, and I'm super happy that you're the first guest on the show because I know that the people listening are going to learn so much from you. Yeah, so I wanted to start off with just your background. I know it. I've heard it a bunch. I was there for part of it, I guess. But tell us, where you're from, what sports you played in high school, and let's just kind of start from the beginning.
Okay, so I grew up in Peabody, Mass, just like you.
Yeah.
I went to St. John's Prep High School in Danvers, Mass. It's like 5-10 minutes away. It's an all-boys Catholic school. I think we had like 1,200 kids. I played baseball, football, and hockey during my 4 years there. Grew up as like a multi-sport athlete, pretty much played every sport I could my whole life. Those are the three that I chose when I got to high school. And then, as I got a little bit older in high school, I started to realize that baseball was kind of my best sport, the sport that I thought that I'd have a chance to go play college and then hopefully one day play professionally. That was always kind of my goal and dream when I was a young kid, wanted to play in the major leagues. And so ended up getting a scholarship to Wake Forest, where I ended up going for 3 years and playing. I got drafted out of high school by the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 19th round. And so made a decision to put off pro ball, go to college. Went to Wake Forest for 3 years, got lucky enough to get drafted again. Went in the first round that time, so I had to go and play. So then I was drafted by the Padres. Made my major league debut in 2008 after I think it was a little under 2 years or so from when I got drafted, right around there. And then I kind of bounced around for a while. Played for 5 total teams in Major League Baseball. Played with the Padres, the Nationals, the Orioles, the Indians, the Yankees. And then in 2013, I got released/retired, and that's when I got into college coaching. Coached at Wake Forest and then coached at Holy Cross. I started Antonelli Baseball, and that's what I've been doing since 2013, kind of growing Antonelli Baseball. And you mentioned the YouTube channel, and it's been a lot of fun, been able to work with a lot of kids and help players get better. So it's been great.
Nice. Well, that was a super, super comprehensive recap of your high school career. No, but that's awesome. And actually, there's a couple pieces in there that I didn't even know. I didn't know that you made it that fast to the major leagues, which I definitely want to dive into. And I know you have some funny stories as well. But let's kind of rewind. Let's go back to high school.
Okay.
You're a talented player at St. John's Prep. I saw your games when I was in 8th grade, 7th grade, all this, because it was just a powerhouse, and watching you play against all the other guys, it was crazy. I know you played hockey too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're really good at hockey. Was baseball just always a passion for you, or was it something where you said, I actually have a career, a more likelihood to have a career in baseball than hockey?
Yeah, so I would say growing up, my goal when I was really little was hockey and baseball are my 2 best sports. They're my 2 favorite sports, playing them. And I always wanted to go to UNH to be a hockey and baseball player. That was like my goal when I was little. I was the bat boy for UNH, and we were good friends with the hockey coach. And so I went to like every hockey game. And then UNH crushed my dreams when I was probably going into high school, and they dropped the baseball program.
Yeah.
And so that kind of changed my whole philosophy on what I wanted to do when I got older. And, I still loved hockey, played it in high school. And I would say probably right around my junior year of high school, I think I just I started playing more baseball, less hockey, and I just started getting better at baseball. And I don't know, I just felt like that was going to be the sport. If I wanted to play in college, and I could have probably played hockey in college, but I was thinking if I want to get to the major leagues, which I wanted to play in the NHL or the MLB, and I was like, you know what, I think I'm better at baseball, and I'm going to go with that and put everything I have into it, and hopefully one day play in the majors.
Yeah, which is, eventually happened. I don't want to foreshadow everything, but so you're in high school, you get drafted your senior year by the Dodgers. You said the 19th round.
Yep.
That's crazy. Not let alone getting drafted in the 19th round out of high school is great, but playing in St. John's Prep in the Northeast, where your first month is shoveling snow off the field. Who was there? Was there anyone specific that gave you advice on why to turn that down? And was it for monetary reasons? Was it for education? To kind of take us through that, because I'm sure that was pretty difficult.
Sure. So it was a little bit of both. And, I think I pretty much relied on, I just talked to my parents mostly. They had contacted some people that they knew, families of kids that had been drafted out of high school. And so they tried to do some research. In the end, I think the main reason was basically, I knew that if I went and played at Wake Forest, that I could do the draft all over again. And as much as I wanted to play professional baseball, I got drafted in the 19th round. I got offered a higher signing bonus. So when the draft was rolling around, people had told me when I talked to organizations that I'd be drafted somewhere in like the 5th to 8th round is kind of where they were saying. And I didn't go there because I'm assuming because, I had the scholarship to Wake Forest. And I think at that point in the draft, people weren't sure if I was going to, sign or not sign. And so I think I dropped a little bit further. Went the 19th. They offered me a signing bonus that was comparable to like a 5th round pick. So it was a tougher decision. If it was just 19th round signing bonus, which is almost nothing, there would have been no thought. I would have just went to college. But the 5th round signing bonus made me have to really think about it. And in the end, I thought that I could, if I went to college, like you said, we're Northeast players. And so we didn't play a ton of baseball growing up. And I thought if I went to college and played baseball all year round in North Carolina, I just thought that I would really develop. And I said, in 3 years, I think I could potentially go in the first round. That was what became my goal. And, I got lucky and it happened. I developed and I ended up getting drafted much higher. So it worked out well. But I did think about it for a little bit because, when you want to play in the major leagues and you get drafted, all of a sudden you have a chance to go and do it. It's tough to say no and kind of, I guess, bet on yourself that you'll get better in 3 years and hopefully go higher.
Yeah. So, you touched on a couple of awesome things, and I didn't even know that story. So I'm glad you could share it. But you keep saying the same thing over and over again. I was lucky enough to get drafted. You were such a great baseball player. I'm sure you still rake, but it sounds like you were so driven at that point, right? When you said no to the draft, you didn't just say, I'm going to get drafted, in the 5th round out of college. I'm going to get drafted in the 2nd round. You're like, I'm going in the 1st round out of college. You did 17th overall, 16th overall?
Yes, 17th.
17th overall. So, take us through Wake Forest, because I don't know if you're the type of person that puts lots of pressure on yourself, because you're a super easygoing person. You're always seemingly in a great mood anytime that we talk. But who was there someone at Wake Forest that really kind of guided you through that? What did you learn at Wake Forest? How was Wake Forest different than your career at the Prep?
So I'll say this: when I went to Wake, the second I decided I wasn't going to go to the Dodgers and I went to Wake Forest, the first thing I said was, like I mentioned, I said I want to be a 1st round pick, and then literally for the next 3 years, I would say pretty much every day when I woke up, I would say, okay, what's the game plan today? What do I got to do to put myself in a good situation to do it? Now, so I'm a little odd. I don't have very many talents. I have just a couple. But the things that I think I'm good at, I will put everything. Sorry, hold on one sec. Okay. I'll put pretty much everything into that, those few things. And so I can be very driven at, if I say this is what I want to do, then I can get real obsessed with it. And which really, I think, helps me with those couple of things. Now, it hurts me in most of the other stuff because I don't know really much about anything else except for, again, just a couple of things. But I'm real good at laser focusing in on that. And so that's essentially what I did. I went down there, and then I just worked really hard for 3 years. I set a goal. And the great thing about college versus high school is that, I had to go to class, obviously. I had to make sure that I didn't flunk out, and I had to be eligible. But I was really focused on baseball. Like, I would get up, if I had to get up early to do a workout or hit and then go to class, and then I would go, right when class ended, I'd want to go and do more, whether it was, again, working out or practicing on my own on top of our team stuff. So I was pretty focused, and, I was pretty dedicated to reaching my goals. And college gave me a good opportunity because I could do it. The field's always open to you. You can go, you can work out whenever you want. It's not like high school where we're in the freezing cold. I can't get outside for 8 months out of the year, it feels like.
Yeah.
And, the opportunity is just so much more. The resources are so much more when I went down to college.
Yeah. So I want to talk about something that you just said. It was your daily routine. Every single day you woke up, you said, what can I do to be a first rounder? I love the habits that I've created for myself. It really helps me. I can really tell if I fall out of a habit, it really affects my life. Right.
Mm-hmm.
With things I'm doing now with when I was in college, that is definitely probably one of the biggest things I would change with my playing career was having a better routine. And it sounds like you picked up on a great routine early. Take us through kind of a baseball day where you woke up, you said, I'm getting drafted in the first round. This is how I'm going to do it. What does that day look like?
Sure. I would say the typical day, I'd get up, either we'd have a workout before school or I'd go to school right away. So, one thing we had to do is we had to do our classes early. Usually I'd want my day done by around like noon or 1 o'clock. And so I would try to usually get my classes out of the way early. And then basically when I'm done at 1 o'clock with classes, noon or 1, then it's like pretty much baseball until late at night when I've got to go to study hall and then get back into homework mode. But I would say, thinking back, I'd probably get out of class at 1, I'd eat lunch, and then I would get up over to the field probably around 1:30, 2 o'clock, try to do something on my own. So we had a batting cage. The facilities now at Wake Forest are amazing. I didn't have the facilities then that they have now, but I had all I needed. I had a field and I had a batting cage. And so I usually try to get up there. I would try to get something done in the batting cage. I would try to pick something that I wanted to work on that day. I'd probably hit for like 30, 45 minutes on my own. Practice would start. I think we started right around like 2:30-ish or so. We would usually practice for like, say 2.5 hours. Then you usually go to the weight room after that, work out for like an hour or so. And then typically after that, we'd go to study hall. So at Wake Forest, it was mandatory study hall freshman year. And then I think depending on your GPA and all that stuff, you can kind of not go as much your sophomore and junior year. I was a good student in high school, but Wake Forest was a little bit tougher for me. And I think I wanted, I'll just say this. I went to Wake Forest. I tell everyone, they say, why'd you go to Wake Forest? I say, well, I went because of the academics and the athletics. But honestly, once I got on campus, it was like, okay, I have to do school to make sure that I get all my stuff done and I'm eligible. But I was like 99% baseball. I wanted baseball bad, and then I did enough schooling. So I had to go to study hall probably more than some of the other guys did. And, honestly, if that would end late, I'd get like dinner. And then at that point, like the night's almost over. It's like either go to bed, maybe hang out with my buddies for a little bit, or, sometimes I would go and do a little bit extra work, maybe up at the cage again, or maybe getting another workout or something like that. But it was honestly like, it felt similar to professional baseball where it felt like a job. There was just school involved that's not involved in professional baseball. But it was like an 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. day, pretty much like every day. And, luckily I really enjoyed that and I like it. And so, that's what I did and I had fun with it.
That's great. It sounds like the key to kind of just your success. Obviously, you're super talented. You don't just get, you don't just go to Wake Forest on routine alone. You're super talented, but it seems like you combined it with being just like Superman consistency. I mean, would you say that's kind of accurate? It's tough to do that every single day, day in and day out. So it's kind of cool you had that mantra and that very, very clear goal, that you want to get drafted in the first round. So let's talk about that. I mean, that's every kid's dream. Anyone that's watching this or listening to this that's playing baseball in high school or middle school or college or whatever, that is the dream to hear your name called in the first round. Take us through that day. Take us through, the call, and then what happened right after, because I know it's super, super fast moving. So what was that like?
So I'll go to the night before the draft. My dad would check, and I also would check a little bit. They had like mock drafts and stuff. And so I had an idea. I think the night I went to bed, they had me going, I think 14th overall to the Blue Jays. And so I thought I had a pretty good chance of going in the first round. I talked to a decent amount of teams. I know the Red Sox were picking. I think they picked late that draft. It was like high 20s or something.
Did you really, really want the Red Sox?
So it's funny. I was a huge Red Sox fan.
Yeah.
But selfishly, I did not want the Red Sox because I wanted to go a lot higher. But
that's fair. That's very fair.
The Red Sox kind of said, like, if I made it to them, that they would probably select me. They made it sound like they were probably, there was a good chance they'd select me. So I had a good idea I was going to go in the first round. So I woke up in the morning, and we had a little party over the house. We had my friends over, my family's friends, my family, everyone over the house. There was a good amount of people over there. And, but I was fairly confident I was going to go pretty high. I remember I woke up and checked that mock draft, and they had changed it and put someone else in my spot for the Blue Jays. And I remember getting all upset that I had moved back in the draft, even though I'm sure, it didn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
But I wasn't nervous at all. I was, again, I don't know why. I think I just felt confident that I was going to go somewhere. The Padres ended up calling me, which I did not know was the Padres at the time. They were the one team that called me right before the draft, answered the phone, and they just said, hey, they didn't even say who they were. They said, hey, you got all 10 fingers and 10 toes. And I was like, yep, I got all 10 fingers and 10 toes. And they said, okay, great. Just hang in there. Something might be happening soon. And I said, okay, great. I hung up the phone. And then my parents said, who was it? And I said, I have no idea. I just said, someone called and asked if I had 10 fingers and 10 toes. And I told them, yeah.
So weird.
I know.
So weird.
I know. So I had all my friends over, and so we hung out, played, Xbox for the day, and then the draft started. Back then, it was on the internet. It wasn't on TV or anything. Mm-hmm. I actually have, if you go on my YouTube channel, I don't know what you got to type in, draft day or something. I have a video. So there was a couple of camera crews or local news stations that came over and filmed the draft. They had me mic'd up or whatever back in the day, and. So I put that on YouTube. So if anyone wants to see it, you can go on there and check out Draft Day. But
we'll put that in. We're gonna write up a little story about this. We're gonna put in some show notes. I'll make sure to link that so people can go to the website and see that. Yeah, go ahead.
I had horrible hair. I had this long, just terrible haircut. My style was terrible. But so, anyways, yeah, we watched it on the computer. Sat there with my family and everyone, and then got a call. Probably right before the Padres picked. And again, I didn't know who it was. I answered the phone, and they said, hey man, congratulations. We're about to pick you here. I said, thank you so much. I hung up the phone. My parents looked at me, and again, I was like, I don't know. Someone said they're going to take me, but I don't know who it is. And probably a minute later or so, it said San Diego Padres select, and they called my name, and then everyone got real excited, and that was it.
Man, I feel like I'm there. My heart's beating. I mean, I love the detail in that story, because I mean, you didn't even know who was calling you. It's crazy. And they ask you a really weird question. That's crazy as well. That's so cool. And then, so they say they select you, you hug your family, everything happens. And then you're just sitting there and you're like, what do I do now? Do they call you after?
So basically, no. So we all celebrated. Actually, one of my buddies went in his car. He had just bought a San Diego Padres hat. So he ran out to his car, got it, came back, gave it to me, and he was like, "This is a really weird coincidence, but I just bought this hat here. Take it." So I threw it on, and so yeah, we just hung out. And then probably, so they ended up calling. I don't remember if it was that night or the next day or whatever. And they said, I think it was the next day maybe. And they said, hey, we want to, let's talk negotiations or whatever. Let's figure out a contract and hammer away at it. And let's get it signed today and get you out here playing. And so I called my agent and I was like, hey, I just got a call from the Padres. And he was in New York. And that's where his agency actually is in Virginia, but his office was in New York. And I said, yeah, they said they want to sign me today. They're going to work on the contract. And he was like, whoa. He's like, no, we're not signing today. He's like, I'm not even there. Like, we'll get together. We'll have a meeting, whatever. And so I said, okay. So I told them and they said, no, we're signing today. The area scout is coming up and we're going to get this hammered out. So the area scout that drafted me flew up, came to my house. And he said, yeah, we're getting this done. And so we literally sat in my house it felt like, I think it was the whole day. He got there early. We talked the whole day. My agent was on the phone and they would just, talk back and forth. And then we'd wait and hang out for a while. And they'd talk again and hang out for a while. I think they originally offered me like $30,000 under slot value, which slot value is basically just, I don't know, I guess the money they assign for that pick. And they say, that's kind of fair value, I guess.
Yeah.
So they offered like 30,000 less. And then my agent was like, F this, we want 30,000 more. And then they fought back and forth. And after a whole day, I ended up signing and I signed for exactly slot value. So we fought the whole day and signed for slot value. And then he said, great. Let's go to eat dinner. And we went and ate dinner with the area scout. And that was it. I was a Padre. I signed and I flew out like a couple days later.
That's awesome. I mean, whoever picked slot value, I mean, good job. Props to that guy.
Right on.
Yeah, right. Perfect on the money. That's cool.
Technically, I didn't even need an agent. I could have just said like, hey, I'll sign for slot value. Okay, great. We'll get it done. And then we'll go. But I didn't know. And actually, honestly, I was not, I probably could have like held out and signed for a little bit more. But in the end, it's like, if you're like, I was getting drafted for more money than I had like at the time, probably like $3 in my wallet. And, I never had a job in my life other than playing baseball. So like, I was happy to pretty much almost sign for anything. So I was not going to argue over like a little bit money here and there. I just wanted to basically play. I wanted to be fair, but I wanted to sign and play. I think I might have been the first rounder, or I could have been the first rounder to sign, I believe. I signed so fast.
I don't know if that's impressive, but it happened.
It did.
I'm the quickest signer of these contracts. Give me the contract,
like, this idiot.
I'll sign. Yeah, no negotiation.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so cool though. So you went from years every single day saying, I want to go in the first round. I'm going to go in the first round. I'm doing this routine every day, 3 years. You sign, and now you're like, I'm a professional baseball player. I'm a first rounder. I mean, what was actually going through your head? I know you're happy. I know you just had more money, than you've ever had because you went to the batting cage. And I'm going to embarrass you now because what was the car that you bought?
Oh, worst investment ever. Hopefully Jaguar isn't watching this. I bought the stupidest car. That was the one thing I spent my signing bonus on. I don't know why. I felt like, it's a cool thing to get a new car, and it was horrible. I would not, if anyone gets drafted anywhere, do not buy a stupid expensive car.
So that's great tactical advice people can use. Anyone that goes in the first round that's listening to this podcast, don't buy a Jaguar. But I remember because, I mean, for anyone that's listening, we grew up in the same town. For everyone that's listening, we grew up in the same town. I'm a little bit younger than you, and I worked at Extra Innings. It was a batting cage, you went to often, and I see Matt rolling up in this black Jaguar, right? I was like, this kid's the man. He just signed. He just signed with the Padres. He's from Peabody. He's a Peabody kid. And I think I went out and I looked at your car. It was fun. It was really fun. So I got some enjoyment out of that purchase. So it wasn't a total loss.
Well, it still makes me mad, but I'm glad you were excited.
I was super excited. Yeah, I don't know how old I was, 14 or something. 14. I don't know. But yeah, so you just made your dream, your goal. Did you just segue right to, I want to get to the major leagues? I need to get to the major leagues. I mean, did your goal go from, I'm a first rounder. Did you take time to enjoy that? Or
So,
was it just kind of the next thing?
so this is probably really strange. Everyone probably thinks I'm very odd for this. I got drafted, and I don't feel like I changed my mindset baseball wise continued to stay the same. Like it was like I want to go now. It's like all right, I want to go to the major leagues. But as far as just like honestly, my mindset, like nothing really changed. I almost feel like I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like for instance, I continued to I gave batting lessons at extra innings for like $15 an hour. I continued to wash dishes at my family's catering business for like probably $10 an hour. Like I kept doing the same stuff that I had been doing before. The only difference was now I was paid to play baseball, but like nothing really changed except for my stupid car purchase. And so all I did, I just continued to just focus on baseball still. And I was like, all right, I got drafted and that's awesome, but let's try to get to the major leagues now. And the same goal I had when I was like really, really little. Now we was getting a little bit closer. And so it was one of the reasons why I wanted to sign so quick. Cause I was just like, the draft is great, but if I can sign quick and get out there and play well, then maybe I'll get up to the big leagues quicker. And so that's why I signed so quickly. And it went right out. I went to Eugene, Oregon, which was short season A-ball. And I went right out and started playing. And I was like, let's get going and let's see how quickly I can get there. That was honestly my only thought.
Yeah. It sounds like you just switched what your goal was, and then you started working towards that goal, which is pretty cool. So, so you get to the, minor leagues. I'm assuming you did really well in the minor leagues to make it to the major leagues. Is that the case? Were you right place, right time? Because you made it in 2 years. That's so fast. I mean, that's crazy.
So I had a really weird career. I went with the Eugene, and the short season's very quick. I think I played in like 30 games. I hit around 300. I had a really high on-base percentage. Didn't hit for a whole lot of power, but I would say it was like somewhat of a successful first year, I guess. Again, it's very quick. Like the draft happens in June, and then you go play like pretty much like the middle of June, July, and August, and the season's over. So I went to short season, and then I got called up to low A ball, probably like with like 2-3 weeks left in the season. I went there and kind of we went to the playoffs. I didn't even play in the playoffs. I guess they just wanted me to go up and just kind of watch the playoffs and just, I don't know, I guess just hang out and maybe for some more coaches to see me. And then from there, I went to instructional league, which most players do. It's in the fall. It's mostly like first year and second year players go. I kind of went to learn a new position. I was transitioning from third to second. But then also just to kind of learn what it's like to be a pro, learn like the philosophy of the organization, meet the entire coaching staff. And so that's when I went there, all of a sudden I started to really, I don't know what happened. Something happened in my swing. I started hitting for a lot of power. I was never a huge power guy my whole life. Never hit a home run in high school. I hit some in college, but I mean, I probably should have hit more than I did in college. I was a big, strong guy. And then when I went to short season ball, I hit no home runs. So I get to instructional league, and all of a sudden something happened in my swing. I start popping home runs, and then I go to spring training in the fall, and I'm hitting more home runs. And then they bump me up to high A ball. So I go very quick. I've already gone from short season to low A to high A, and it's all happened in like 8 months or something like that. Yeah. And I go to high A, and then I just, for some reason, go bonkers, and I start hitting home run. I'm hitting balls like I've never hit in my life. I'm hitting these balls, and like, never have I hit balls and just been like, oh, that's gone. And I'm hitting these balls, and like the second I hit them, I'm like, that ball's way out of here. And it's like, and it's very strange. I hit 14 home runs, I think, in the first half of the year, which was a lot for a second baseman.
That's a lot for anybody.
So I got called up to Double A halfway through the year. So I played like 2 months of high A ball. I was hitting like, I don't know, 315 with like 14 homers or something like. I think it was 14 homers. I go to Double A. I hit 7 homers in like my first month, and I'm like, at this point, I'm like, am I Barry Bonds? Like, I don't know what's going on right now.
Yes, I love it.
And so I'm feeling great, and like then they start talking to me. I'm in Double A now, and I've only been playing for a year basically, and they're like talking to me about getting called up to the major leagues that year. This was 2007. I got drafted in 6, so it was a year later, and I didn't get called up. But the weird thing is, at the end of that Double A season, so I go into August, the last month of the year, I'm hitting probably 330 with with 21 home runs, and this is combined between the two leagues. And then August hits. I hit 0 home runs. I hit 200, I think, for August. I just forgot how to hit all of a sudden. I go to the fall league, and I can't hit a home run, and I hit like 230. And now, for the first time in my life, I went from being Barry Bonds, which I thought I was Barry Bonds, to then not being able to hit a ball anywhere. It was the strangest thing that ever happened in my life. And so now I don't know what to do. I go to spring training the next year. I can't hit. They send me to AAA, and I can't hit. And that whole year, I hit 160 in AAA pretty much for 3/4 of the year. It was an absolute nightmare. I thought I was going back to AA. It was the first time in my life that I could not hit. I'd hit pretty much since Little League, where I just walked out, I swung, I hit the ball, everything was great. I didn't overthink my swing. Everything worked great until it didn't work great all of a sudden in AAA.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. And I was completely lost. And I actually, honestly, I thought my career was over. I went from thinking I was going to the big leagues 1 year into my career, starting to thinking I'm going to get released and never play baseball again. It was so strange.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a big shift. And I mean, a big part of this show, I want to talk about hitting. We spoke in a Starbucks, I don't know, a couple years back or something. We just talked hitting for a long time. And that's such a big part of what you teach. It's so different than what, me and you grew up teaching, but, or being taught. So I definitely want to get into that. I first want to go to, you're hitting a $160.
Mm-hmm.
Does your mindset still change? I mean, you say, I'm going to get released now. Do you still wake up every day and say, I'm going to the major leagues? I'm going to the major leagues. How'd you get around that type of slump where it's not just, I haven't got a hit for a couple weeks. It's this is 3/4 of a season. I'm lost. I mean, how'd you deal with that?
So, not well. So I wish I could say oh man, I stayed so super positive and I just battled through it. And, but honestly, and this is one thing, if you talk to a lot of people, if you talk to people that have been around the major leagues for a long time, whether it's coaches or front office people or just players, almost everyone will say, most of the players that get there obviously are super talented, and most of them never struggle their entire life until, eventually most of them will hit a point where they struggle. And that is the point where it's some guys are able to figure it out and get there. And then some guys just can't figure it out and they've never had any adversity and they just, they're done. And I kind of felt like that when it was going on, cause I didn't know what to do. I was like, how do I, people were like, hey dude, everyone was giving me advice. Hey man, just go back to doing what you've done your whole life. And I was like, that sounds great, but I don't know what I did my whole life. I stepped in the box and I swung and I hit the ball and now I can't do it. So it was really frustrating and everyone wanted to help, but it didn't feel like anything I was trying was working. And a lot of people would say, simple stuff. They'd bring a hitting coach in. They say, hey man, spread your feet out and put your hands higher and do this. And I would try it and it wouldn't work. And then they'd send in another coach and they'd say, hey, put your feet closer together and put your hands down and try this. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd try that and it wouldn't work. And so I was getting tons of different info and I didn't really know hitting at all. This is one of the reasons why I got really obsessed with hitting. At this point, I was not obsessed with hitting. I just hit, but I didn't know anything about hitting. And I ended up learning a lot from this experience because I had to try to figure out what the hell do I do now? I don't feel like anyone can help me. Nothing's working. And if this keeps going, I'm never going to play again. And I got super lucky. A player by the name of Sean Wooten. He was my teammate in AA the year I was just crushing baseballs. And he ended up, I think he might have got released by the Padres. He was an older player. He actually won a World Series with the Angels back. I think they beat Barry Bonds and the Giants. I don't know what World Series that was, but he was the DH for that team. So he was like a 37, 36-year-old veteran, and I was a 21-year-old kid. And we played together in AA. He got released. The next year in AAA, I'm hitting like a $160 again. And he's playing AAA with, I think it was maybe the Astros. I can't remember what team it was. It was some team he was playing AAA with. And so I get up to bat. He's catching. He's like, "Hey, what's up, buddy? Nothing much. I'm hitting." After the game, I come out of the clubhouse, and he's waiting out there. And he says, "Hey," he's like, "I got to talk to you." I'm like, "What's up?" He goes, "What the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "I know, man. It's bad." He goes, "No, I'm not kidding. You've got the worst swing I've ever seen. What are you doing?" He's like, "You don't look anything like you did last year." And I said,
Yeah.
I wish I knew. So we talked real quick, and that was it. He left. A couple weeks later, I come to the clubhouse one day, and he's in our clubhouse sitting on a locker. And I'm like, "What the hell are you doing?" He goes, "Padres just signed me." He's like, "I'm your teammate again." I was like, no way. So we end up becoming roommates. And he says, "Listen," he watches me for a little bit. He goes, "Listen, I know what's wrong with you. We need to fix this." We end up talking hitting pretty much every night till about 2-3 in the morning. He's showing me videos. I realize that he's like a hitting guru. It's unbelievable. He's the first coach that talked about hitting in a way that I was like, this is unbelievable. I've never heard this stuff before. You said, like, the way we were taught very, I don't even know how to explain it. Probably the way every kid's taught, like, A to B swing and, all like the old school things, squish the bug and down the ball and all those things. I heard that my whole life. And he was the first person that said, no, don't, like, forget about that stuff. I'm going to show you what you need to do. This is what all good hitters do. He taught me a ton about hitting. I'm not kidding you. I went from 160 to the last month of the year. I hit 300. He totally somehow got me to hit again. I hit 300. I hit 5 homers in the last month and got called up to the major leagues. And I was like, oh my God.
There is so much there I want to talk about. What did he see in your swing, number one? What did he change? Because you said he happened to find something in my swing.
Yes.
You guys talked about baseball, about hitting for so many hours. I'm sure you in the cage. I mean, tell us what he told you. I want to know what he told you. What did he see? Because there is this conventional wisdom. I'm going to talk for like 2 seconds, and I want you to just go at it.
Yep.
I think the way that we were taught was the easiest way to convey information. So it's easy to say, squish the bug. It's easy for a child to understand that. That doesn't mean it's right. That just means it's easy to tell a little league coach when he reads, a blog article or whatever, a kid can squish the bug. It vaguely resembles what a major leaguer does. Mm-hmm. Down the hill, through the tunnel, up the hill, squish the bug. It's just ingrained in my head. I can't get it out because that just sounds easy. And that's not hitting at all. Everyone says hitting's so hard. So I never understood why everyone made it seem so easy. And when I played, I was really good at doing a really bad swing because I would just practice it over and over and over and over again. All these coaches are like, Josh, your swing's so good technically. I'm like, then why aren't I hitting? You know what I mean? I didn't understand it. So, when, there's like a hitting revelation now, and you're a huge part of it. The things that you talk about on Antonelli Baseball are what Sean Wooten, I'm sure, taught you, or at least had, that was the inception of it. So, I mean, what were those conversations? That's what we want to know. What were those conversations about?
So, this may sound crazy. You have to remember that this is 2008. There are no swing sensors. There's none of that stuff. Okay. And so he was really the first coach that actually talked to me. This may sound crazy. Talked to me about bat path and what the path is actually supposed to be. Now, all I'd heard my whole life is that you want to be, again, A to B, short to the ball, down to the ball. He was the first one to actually talk to me about path. He was the first one to talk to me about getting the barrel behind the ball, getting on the same plane as the pitch. He talked to me. He showed me what I was doing, which I had no idea. Like, I didn't know. So what was happening was essentially my path was really bad. It was from the outside in. So I was cutting across the zone and I was very much down. Like, I was very steep to the ball, down to the ball. And I was kind of like, I call it pushing the bat, but basically that's what I was doing. So I was out, around, and then cutting across, down through the ball, pushing the bat. So I had no bat speed. I couldn't hit home runs anymore. I'd get jammed a lot, or I'd get the ball at the end of the bat. And I would, every at bat was basically a roll over to third or a pop up to right, shallow right field, because my bat was down and across. So I'd either pull the ball on the ground and smash it on the ground because I'm swinging down like this, or if I missed under the ball and was cutting across, the ball would go up and to the right. I kept doing it, but no one ever said, like, okay, this is your ball flight. And even if they didn't really, like, there were no sensors or anything, they could at least, okay, this is the ball flight. This is probably what your bat is doing. Or this is what your bat's doing. And this is how we got to correct it. No one ever said that. He was the first one to tell me this. And I'd worked with like 1,000 coaches. Like, they were sending in everyone. They were sending in psychologists and psychiatrists and everybody because they thought I was crazy. And so he was the first one to say this to me. And so he said, basically, we've got to get your path. We got to get behind the ball. We've got to get you swinging more from like the inside out, but really, essentially, having my back cover the hitting zone better and get my barrel on path with the ball. Those were like the easy things that we had to do. Now, how we did that, we changed like the way my weight was gathering. I was diving into the plate. My posture wasn't really good. There was a lot of stuff that we worked on, and I'm not kidding. We'd be in the hotel room wherever we're on the road. We'd watch film. He had a computer with like everybody's swing. So we'd watch Pete Rose's swing, and we'd watch Tony Gwynn and Ted Williams, and he'd just go through all these hitters. And you say, see how this guy does this, see how he's this, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm watching these guys. I'd never watched swings in my life, and I was like, wow, like, you're right. Like, they all like, they're stylistically, they're all very different, but they're like, they're doing the same stuff. Like the core, I call them now like core principles. They're doing the same stuff, and so he helped me just do that. And it was like very simple stuff that he would tell me. He'd be like, feel your weight. Really easy thing. I was always taught to have the weight kind of on the balls of my feet, almost in the front of my feet, right? And because of that, I was diving forward. So my weight was really getting over the plate. So I would dive in and then I would cut across. And he was the first guy that said, like, no, you want to feel your weight more like on the backside of you. So he's like, feel like your heel is in the ground more. Keep your heel connected to the ground. Feel like you feel the ground underneath you. That'll get the weight back behind you more. You won't dive in. You'll be in better posture. Like, all this stuff I never heard. And he would say, literally he'd say, take your bottom hand. One of the things he was telling me, because I was pushing and I was getting out and around, he said, set your bottom hand like this. Set your top hand like this. He would say, I'm trying to think of some of this, like the really easy stuff that would basically get me to be able to turn, now I call it turn the barrel or whatever, but be able to turn the barrel deeper and get from the inside. All of a sudden I start doing this stuff. I go in the cage and the ball just starts, like, it was the weirdest thing. It was like instant. The ball just starts exploding off my bat again. And everyone's like, oh my God, like you're back to being like somewhat normal. And I was like, my power came back, my average came back, and I'd been searching for it for like 8 months and I couldn't figure it out. And I got really lucky and he like saved me.
Well, you got really lucky you ran into him, but you didn't get lucky in the sense that you broke down your swing and you started to understand it. And then you got to the major league. So I mean, we could literally spend hours talking about hitting. I was the same as you in the sense where I would just chop balls. Once I started playing at a little bit higher level, I started working with these other people, and they would say, Josh, that's not how you hit. We don't want ground balls, up the middle. We don't want ground balls to the shortstop. We want doubles. We want home runs. We want to score runs. That's how you win baseball games. And I'll never forget. There was this one guy. I'm gonna give a big shout out right now, Michael Pear. We sat in the cage, and Bobby Tewksbury too. So he hit under Bobby Tewksbury, and we're hitting the cage. I'm hitting off the tee, thinking I'm doing good because you don't know what you're doing on the tee. I'm just hitting every ball into the back of the cage on the ground. Great at tee work, couldn't put together in games. And he had all these things where he was turning the barrel, like you said, and he called it turning the box. So he said there was a box, right here, and you would turn the box this way. And I was like, that's so wrong, man. I go, I go, that's literally the opposite of everything I've ever known, ever. And I was dogmatic about it. So I thought he was wrong 100% and I was right 100%. That is one of the times in my life he completely flipped me on my head and said, this is why you're wrong. I'm going to show you how to hit. He showed me what he knew. And it was one of the other times too that I had a light bulb moment. I go, that's how you hit. That makes so much more sense. I could never figure out why I couldn't hit the ball the other way, hard. And because I was chopping like you, because we were taught by the same people, honestly. But I had that light bulb moment from him, and he taught me the same thing as you. And I was so dogmatic about thinking down the hill, through the tunnel, up the hill, squish the bug, Mike to Ike. There's like so many bad ways to coach. And it flipped me on my head, and I was so appreciative for it. But so you got your swing back, and then instantly people are like, Barry Bonds is back. He's crushing it. And so you crush it for a few weeks. I'm sure you got your confidence back too. And you get called up to the big leagues. We spoke about it once before. I definitely want you to talk about the cleats, about the cleat story that you told me about. And tell us, what is it like, getting called up to the major leagues? What's the phone call like? Does it smell different when you get into the dugout? What are guys like? I mean, that's the ultimate dream. Getting drafted in the first round is the start of the dream. Walking onto a major league field for your first time and having your family there with you, I'm sure is just, is a dream come true. So what was that like?
So when I got called up first, I was, like I said, I was hitting really well. I was not ever expecting to get called up. I got called up. In some ways, I felt like I'd always envisioned myself going up during a time like I was hitting in Lake Elsinore and so basically high A and double A, where I was just crushing the ball. And I was hitting well again in Portland, but it was only for about a 3 to 4 week time frame. I'd gone 4 months not hitting anything. So even though I was hitting better, I was not like super confident. I was still like a little doubtful because I was like, okay, I did forget how to hit there for about 8 months. And so I was a little nervous going up to the big leagues. I wish I'd gone up at a feeling, I wish it was a year before when I felt amazing. I think I would have went up there and played with a ton of confidence. So I get up. I am somewhat nervous. I get in the clubhouse. I flew in early in the morning. I was up in Washington. Our AAA team was playing in Tacoma. I fly in early in the morning. I'm not expecting to play. I show up. I go to the manager's office. Buddy Black was our manager. And he says, hey, man, welcome. Like, you're in there today at second base. And I was a little bit surprised. And I was like, oh, my Lord. I'm like, I got to go play in a major league game right now. I go over and look at the lineup, and they're pitching Greg Maddux. And I'm like, I got to face Greg Maddux in like a couple hours now. Beautiful, so Hall of Famer. So now I'm getting a little bit nervous. I probably was acting a little nervous. I'm not the type of person. I am not extremely outgoing. Like, once I know somebody and I feel comfortable in a situation, I can talk with everybody. But I'm not someone that's going to get into a new situation and just be like, buddy with everyone and, hey, what's going on, guys? So I was probably very quiet when I walked in the clubhouse. I probably didn't talk to very many people. There was a veteran. I walked out in the dugout. I'm kind of taking it all in. I had a veteran player come up to me and say, like, he actually kind of yelled at me. He was like, hey, man, like, you just got called up. Your dog didn't just die. Like, act a little excited. And I was like, and that made me even more, like, kind of nervous because I was like, I yelled that I've been here for 20 minutes. So the game starts, and, luckily the first hitter of the game, Russell Martin, led off of the Dodgers, and he hits me a hard ground ball, first batter of the game. And it's coming to me, and I'm like, please just field the ball, please. And I field it. I look down. It's in my glove, and I'm like, yes. And I'm like, please go to first. I throw to first, get the out. And then all of a sudden, I felt like super calm. It was very weird. I went from very nervous to the nerves all went away. And I guess it was like, okay, this is the same kind of game. They hit a little harder, but, I still feel the ball. I throw it to first. And then I went up and got up that next inning and got a 1-1 fastball, I think it was, and hit a line drive to center field for a base hit. And again, I kind of went back, like I rounded first, and I was like, I'm going to get 3,000 hits. Like, this is going to be easy. And I think I got like 12 in my career. So. 12 is still great. And your big league home run too. But off Greg Maddux, first career major league hit off Greg Maddux. I don't know if we could find that stat, but I wonder how many people got their first career hit off Greg Maddux. He played for so long, it might be a couple, but it can't be a lot. You know what I mean? You're right. Yeah, I know. It was. I got really, really lucky, and I don't know. I got the ball. My kid doesn't even know I played baseball, so he's going to be 5. But I'm sure one day it'll be cool to be able to show him and say that I at least got one hit off of a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is so cool. It's you were there. You experienced it. You met these players. And honestly, this is a great segue into some other things I want to talk about before we finish up. But you took all of that and you didn't just say, you had a cup of coffee in the major leagues. You did great. You had all these amazing experiences, and you didn't just leave baseball. I feel like you're more ingrained in the game of baseball now, maybe than you ever have been. And you started Antonelli Baseball, and your handle on Instagram is @Antonelli Baseball, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on YouTube, it's @Antonelli Baseball on YouTube too?
I think it. I first started as, I don't know why, Touch 'em All Baseball was what I first was called like 10, 15 years ago. I remember we're sitting in my living room. I was like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And my dad was like, what the hell is YouTube channel? I was like, I don't know. I'm going to start and put up videos. And I was like, what should I call it? And he was like, we're sitting there thinking, I'm like, what do they call like home runs? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, Touch 'em All. That's a cool. And I was like, all right, let's go with that. So I put it up there. And then when we started Antonelli Baseball, I wiped that out, put Antonelli Baseball. So technically it's Antonelli Baseball, but I think it might and I don't even know how YouTube works, but you might still be like YouTube / Touch 'em All Baseball. But if you type in Antonelli Baseball, it'll come up. I got like 8 billion videos up there. So.
You have a lot of videos up there.
Videos.
And I have watched I've watched a lot of them, and I don't even play the game anymore, but it's still so fascinating to me how much the swing has changed. And just, I don't need to look back. You don't need to look back on what could have been or whatever, but you've really taken a big step moving forward. You're saying, I learned something that was so important. It got me from hitting $160 and thinking about quitting baseball to the major leagues, where you got your first hit off Greg Maddux, and you wanted to take that, learn it even more. And now I feel like you know more about hitting than you ever have. And you're not keeping it for yourself. You're passing it down to other kids, which is so important because they're not going to have, maybe the same struggles as you, and you're helping all of those kids. So I want to dig into that a little bit. You talked about your son. You said he's almost 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, he's a young baseball player. There might be some parents listening to this. I'd like to go and see, what are you teaching your son right now? He's 5 years old. Obviously you can't necessarily teach him turning the barrel and kind of sequencing of his swing. Are you guys just going out there and having fun, and maybe one day you'll work on it, or what types of tips do you give a 5-year-old?
Yeah. So I get this question I get asked a ton, and sometimes I laugh. I get a lot of emails and questions that say, my son is 4 or 5 or 6, and what should I be teaching him? And I have a 4-year-old, almost 5, and you can't teach him anything. He will not listen to anything I say anyway. So, but I think the biggest things that I've done with them, and he loves baseball, and he's got a pretty good swing, and I hope that he enjoys. He really enjoys it now. Hopefully, he keeps enjoying it. The only things that we do, and I've done this since he was, when he learned how to walk, I've always had kind of bats around the house. And for whatever reason, he's just gravitated towards them, and he likes to play sports and he likes to swing. So he's been, I've got videos of him when he's like 1.5 years, and he's got a bat, and I actually do it with my daughter now. She's just turned 2. I would take a balloon, I'd hold the balloon up, something nice and big that makes them feel good when they hit it, and that's how we started. So he would hit the balloon, and he loved it, and my daughter loves it too now. That was a big thing that we did at the beginning. The other interesting thing is, it's so weird. When my son was really young, probably in his 2s, if you show him something, so like he would take a swing, and I can't say anything to him. We can't even really talk at this point, but he would swing. And then I would take the bat, and I would get up lefty because I want to hit lefty. That was one thing I made sure that he was hit lefty, and my daughter too.
Yeah.
And so I would take a swing, and I would do it, however I want to do it. And it's amazing. At 2 years old, he'd watch me, and then he'd take the bat, and he would mimic what I just did, and his swing would change, and I'd be like, "This is amazing!" Like, I don't say anything, I just do it. And then we'd start watching like Red Sox games, and he's sitting there watching the game, and then all of a sudden he'd start like mimicking guys on TV. So I think that was really like to be able to, maybe a parent can't show someone like, I got lucky. I played a high level, so I can kind of show them what I want them to do. But you just flip the TV on and let them watch TV a little bit, and all of a sudden, like it's amazing how much stuff they pick up. And then from there, we just have fun. Like I don't think I've ever said to him, "Hey, buddy, do you want to go play baseball today?" It's always like, he always says to me, "Hey, can we go outside and hit?" Like, not every day, but like just yesterday, he's, "Hey, can we go hit a little bit?" Yep. And I go out and and that's kind of how my dad was for me. It was like, he didn't have to really push me. He was always there. If I said, "Dad, can we go play baseball?" He always would say yes. Can I play catch? Can you hit me ground balls, flat, whatever? He always said yes. Like, I don't remember him ever being like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I don't have time right now. I got to do this or do that." My dad owned a restaurant my whole childhood. And I remember a lot of times, like, he'd be cooking in the restaurant, and I'd come in and be like, "Hey, Dad, can we play baseball?" And here he is, like, in the middle trying to cook. And there'd be plenty of times where, like, he'd finish up real quick and he'd come out back and, like, have, like, an apron on and play catch with me real quick. And then he'd be like, "All right, I got to run back." He'd run in. I'd throw it off the brick wall, and then he could come back and play. So, like, that's kind of the same thing I try to do with him. He asked me to play. I play with him. I want him to have fun. I don't tell him literally anything. The only things I've said to him when he's hitting, I say, swing fast, try to hit it hard and far, and, like, bat pat stuff. Again, he's 5. I'm not saying anything. But if I want him, all I say is, "Hey, man, try to hit this one." If I feel like he's swinging, like, really down and smash balls on the ground, all I say is, "Hey, buddy, try to hit this one at that tree right there." And it's amazing how well his path will change, because he's going to try to hit the ball there, and, like, simple stuff like that. And I just let him have fun. I never want to feel like I'm coaching him. I don't think a 4-year-old needs to be coached.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, you are coaching them, and that's probably the best advice I've heard. And obviously, you're probably the best person to give advice on this subject too, because I've done lessons and everything for forever, and I don't do them anymore. But I had this lady come in. She had a 6-year-old girl who clearly just hated softball, and I was doing a lesson with her, and she's like, "Yeah, my daughter's not really. She doesn't have any power, and like I want her to have a little bit more power for this and that." And I asked the lady, and this is my job at the time. I'm like, "Does your daughter even like softball?" She's so miserable. So the whole time I would just ask the girl, what she does, what she likes to do, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't even like softball." She would just tell me all the time. So I mean, honestly, that I get asked that question from so many people too. How can I train my son who's 6, 7, 8, 9? And I'm like, you don't. Just make sure they have fun with baseball, and they have the memories to look back on, like you have with your dad, where they were just there playing with you. And if they're fortunate enough where you can teach them something awesome, that's great. But it doesn't. You can still learn that later. And speaking of learning later, let's segue more into like high school, right? A lot of the kids that are listening to this, they might be in little league, they might be in middle school. Lots of them are in high school. You train a lot of high school just studs. I mean, I watch them swing, and I'm like, man, I wish Matt was my coach in high school. like just the level of swings that they're taking, they're so polished, and they're in high school, and it just blows my mind when I watch these videos, which I'm so glad you post. But what do you tell your 16-year-olds? If you said, and I know this is going to be really hard, and I think we've done this exercise before, but if you could only have 1 minute to teach hitting, what would that minute look like?
Okay, so the biggest thing, the first thing I tell them is that they need to be, and this sounds weird because I'm technically a hitting coach. I tell every player, you need to be your best hitting coach. That's the biggest thing. You need to learn as much as you can about your swing, what you do to be successful, what you're doing that's causing you to not be successful if you come into me and you're really struggling, because I'm not always going to be there, and you need to be able to figure it out on your own. And I give them a little bit. Again, I'm in some ways, I wish, obviously, I never struggled in my life and just played 20 years in the big leagues. But the fact that I did struggle, I can share the story of how I was someone that didn't know what the hell I was doing, just happened to be good until I wasn't good anymore, and then I didn't know what to do. And so I want them to be their best coach and know exactly why everything is happening in their swing. And so that's the first thing. I try to educate them on the swing, what I think is a good swing, and then what they're doing. And it's really easy stuff. So I always start with, again, explaining bat path. So I want like the core things. So bat path, what's it supposed to look like? So we talk about how the ball is being pitched from an elevated mound, downhill, or from an elevated mound overhand to a catcher or the squad. The ball's moving downhill. I want to try to impact the ball squarely. In order for me to impact it squarely, I've got to be behind the ball. I've got to be on the same path. So I start with that because a lot of kids are taught this swing like this, straight down to the ball. I would say probably 80% of the kids that come into me, they smash the ball on the ground and they pop up to the infield because they're doing this and they don't know they're doing it and they're told to do it. And they actually think the reason that they're not successful is because they're not doing this enough when they're actually doing that way too much. So, and that's not everyone's issue. There are some kids that lose the barrel, and like everyone has their own issues, but it always comes back to a bat path issue. If a kid comes in and he has a really good path, he might not hit a ton of homers if he's not big and physical or whatever, but he's probably squaring the ball up and he's probably consistent. And so I always start with bat path. And I just explained to them, it's got to be behind the ball. It's got to be on the same path as the ball. And it should be from the inside out, not from the outside in. If you're swinging down, you're from the outside in. If you're swinging slightly up through the ball, you'll be from the inside out. So I give them all of that stuff. And then from there, it's explaining. And again, you said 1 minute thing. This would be impossible. I could never get all of this in 1 minute. A lot of my time, I would say the first hour I meet with a player is sitting down and explaining all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Because if they don't know, I actually always start off with this. And now it's easier because a lot of people know who I am from YouTube. It's amazing. People come in from all over the country. Like I've got people flying in next week from Pittsburgh, and I've had a lot of kids from Canada. I've had everywhere. They all so they see me on YouTube, and then they come in. So that helps if they kind of have a background on the stuff I'm talking about. But there are a lot of kids that just, they see a video quick. The parent sees a video, they type my name or they type Antonelli Baseball. They see where I'm located. Oh, we'll go for a lesson. And so if a lot of times I say, listen, I'm probably going to be different from what you've heard from your coach. Chances are I'm probably a little bit different. And I say, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about the swing, how it works. I said, I want you to listen. I want you to try it. And hopefully you love it and get a lot out of it. If you do, beautiful. We're going to work great together. If you don't ever have to see me again. You can go, you don't have to see me. I don't care. That's perfectly fine. I said, but we need to be on the same page, and you need to just hear me out from where I'm coming from right now. And that's why I spend a lot of time on that first hour explaining everything. And most kids are like, if they've never seen me before or heard of me, they're like, most of them are like, oh my God. Like some say, well, that's totally different than what I've ever been told. Some guys say, I can tell when guys are really fighting me. And if they fight me or whatever, and they say, no, I've been told to do this and I'm trying to work, and they don't listen, then I'm just real honest with them. And I just say like, hey, listen, man, I'm going to tell you what I think again, and you don't have to listen, but I'm telling you, in my opinion, if you want to be successful, this is what you got to do. And then if they come back and see me, beautiful. If they don't, that's fine too. There's so many kids that, want to come in and work. And I'm not saying that I'm really young. I'm only 34 years old. And I don't want to act like I'm like this great hitting coach. I think that I know some stuff. There's plenty of people that know a lot more than me. But I do think that I've watched enough stuff and studied enough stuff that I can help most players. And so hopefully I'm just sharing that with the guys. And then I let them do what they want. If they want it, if they buy into it, beautiful. Let's go 100%. And then we really get into stuff. And if they don't, then that's fine too.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that because you are teaching everyone to be their own coach, because you're not just saying, this is how you do it. This is my way of doing it. If you don't like it, get out of here. You're saying, right, this is what I know. Let's build off of that. Let me teach you what I know so you know it. And then you can learn even more than that. When I was doing lessons, I kind of got the same kind of like side eyes from these coaches. Like, why is he doing this thing where the elbow is flying up towards the ceiling? But all of our players, I think every single one of them led the team in hitting this year. And I just picked, or a couple of years ago when I was doing lessons, But I always told them, I said, I know this is really strange. I wasn't taught this way growing up. But if you ever want to know why we're doing this, just stop me and ask me. Just say, Josh, that makes no sense. Why are we doing this? What's the point of it? And I loved when they asked that, because it's not their fault if I'm communicating something poorly. I could have 10 kids and I might need to explain the same exact thing 10 different ways for them to internalize it. And honestly, we were on your page constantly at my lessons. I mean, like, constantly. You had different bat views, different angles, different topics to talk about. And literally it was so much fun conversing with the kids, because they were like, did you see that video on Antonelli baseball? It was 2 weeks ago. It was of Manny Ramirez. And he was talking about, turning the barrel. I was like, yes, let's look at that right now. Everyone gather around. We have 4 kids in the lesson. And I mean, your page is such a valuable asset, for everybody to use. It's so important, because hitting's really hard, and we're on a podcast right now, and it's tough to conceptualize what we're talking about. We're just speaking about it. You can't even see what we're doing, but your page just sheds so much light on what you're actually talking about. And sometimes it's not even, you talked about turning the barrel. Some kid might be wondering right now, what's turning the barrel? He's going to type it into YouTube, and the only video that's going to pop up is you talking about turning the barrel. So you putting this content out there is so important, for kids. And, I wish obviously that I had it when I was younger, because now I'm a huge believer in the things that you teach, in the way that hitting is being taught now. I think some people might overdo it. Some people might not, but, just being a student of the game and a student of the swing, I'm glad you're passing that along to people, and people are learning that. So props to you, Matt.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And one quick thing on that. The biggest thing I think is with YouTube and all this stuff now is just to go on and watch major leaguers hit and just watch what they're doing. And like I said earlier, stylistically, like, guys do all kinds of crazy stuff, but there are definitely core things that you'll see almost all of them doing. There's a reason why the best players, the best hitters are the best hitters, right? Mm-hmm. And like, one thing that drives me so crazy is, the one thing that people say to me sometimes is, yeah, well, that only works because they're these major league players. And I always say, like, no. The reason they're major league players is because they're doing this. Now, does it help that they are, very big and strong and athletic and all this stuff? Like, yeah, that absolutely, like, you can have a great swing, and if you don't have some of those traits, then you might not make the major league. Even if you have those, you might not make the major leagues. But there's no doubt that if you hit in the big leagues for a long time, that what you're doing is like that swing. That's the reason why you're there. And I see so many bad swings at lower levels. And then when I talk to people, they say, yeah, but you can't do that at this level. You got to do it. Only works because they're major league players. And so that's the one thing that drives me nuts. It's like, just go watch these guys. If you watch the best, the Bonds and the Pujolses and the Rodriguez and all those guys, you take the top, 500 guys, and just watch, and you will see so many similarities from bat path and the way they move their body and sequence their body that, that's the reason why they were so that's the main reason, in my opinion, that they're so good.
Yeah. It's so funny you said that. That is the exact speech I got from my college coach. Mm-hmm. You can't hit like them. You're not as big as them. You don't have the talent like them. You're not as powerful as them. And in my head, I'm like, Coach, you're right. Like, I'm just going to be the best at hitting singles up the middle. You know what I mean? And it's not true at all. They got there because they're doing that. Right. So I like that. I mean, I want to ask you, who's your favorite swing? Who has the favorite swing in the major leagues right now? Give me your top 3 and just a quick favorite thing about it. And then we can wrap up. I want to tell everyone, where to find more about you.
Okay. So let me start all time. Barry Bonds, probably my favorite of all time. Manny Ramirez is right there with them. I think those are the 2 guys that I've watched the most swings of. And then I think Albert Pujols, probably when he was back with the Cardinals, is another guy. Pujols was actually one of the first guys that Sean Wooten showed me, and was showing me a lot of things that I'd never seen before. It was a lot of Pujols stuff. So those 3 are probably my favorite 3 of all time to watch. And again, stylistically, they're all doing stuff different. Some guys have, Pujols had this super wide stance with like this little tiny stride, and Bonds was a little bit closer together, and Manny had a big leg kick. But again, you start watching them, you'll see a lot of similarities between them. And then in today's game, there are a lot of guys. I love, obviously, Mike Trout's swing is a little bit unique, but again, I think he does things so well. JD Martinez is a guy that's gotten like a ton of publicity, and he's one of those guys, if you watch his stuff, he's one of those guys that he was really struggling and was basically on his way out of the big leagues, and he changed his whole philosophy. He was one of the guys that really made it popular. He started saying, like, listen, I've been taught to do this my whole career, and it's not working. And he changed to start to try to get the barrel on path earlier. And now all of a sudden he's JD Martinez, the guy that's one of the best hitters in the league. So he's a great guy to go watch his swing when he was with I think it was with the Astros, and then today, and just watch how his swing has kind of changed.
He got released. So he got released. He was going to play in Mexico or something before he got picked up. Funny story about JD. We played college against each other. He was a D2 guy.
No way.
And so I've known JD. He was a senior when I was a freshman. And I remember his swing being down, but with bat, I mean, it doesn't really matter when you have a composite Nike bat from 2009. But yeah, I mean, his swing, he has talked about, this isn't a natural swing, but watching it. So I went to the Red Sox game the other night. And my favorite thing to do is just watch the on deck circle. I mean, it is just like a treasure trove of information because you see exaggerations of what people are working on. And watching JD warm up, watching him take BP is great. Watching him on the on deck circle, you can kind of feel what's going on in his mind. I mean, he is not only mentally just dialed in, and I remember you had a post about routines, and you used JD because he looks at his bat and breathes.
Yeah.
But watching him in the on deck circle, you just learn so much. And I think more players. There's always like memes and gifs about Cody Bellinger and Joey Votto. They're doing crazy exaggerations in the on deck circle, but just being at the Red Sox game and just watching the on deck circle, I felt like I still learned so much from that.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, every player has these little things that they're doing to just try to feel something. And so you'll see a lot of guys. And again, I don't. Can anyone see me when I'm doing this? So I guess I really can't.
Well, it's gonna be video and it's gonna be on podcast. But if you're on just the audio right now, we're going to put it up on YouTube. So you're going to be able to see everything we're talking about. Yeah.
Fair enough. So you just mentioned Votto. So Votto will really take these exaggerated swings where his lead arm is always working up and he's tilting. So you'll see him tilt back and up. He'll be at first base a lot. He'll take his glove off and he'll start doing this move right here. You'll see Martinez do that a lot. He'll always kind of have his bottom hand. And sometimes I've seen him do it with the bat or just with his arm. You'll see like Aaron Judge make this move, like in between pitches, he'll make this little move where he's feeling the barrel start to kind of turn back. You see a lot of guys do that actually. So every player, not every player, but most players have this little thing that they'll do that's trying to kind of get them to feel, again, whatever they're trying to feel in their swing. And it just kind of gets you like locked in, I guess, feeling it. And you're right. The on-deck circle is where a lot of guys will do it. And then you'll see it in between pitches. Guy will take a pitch. And then when he's kind of, just relaxing until the next pitch comes, you'll see him make like a small little move. And they're just trying to, just program themselves to feel what they want to feel when they're swinging. So that's great. That's a great point.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, and that was actually, it was the night Mookie Betts hit 3 home runs. Was that game against the Yankees. Mookie Betts is definitely Mookie Betts and Altuve, I think, have the absolute most athletic, dynamic swings in baseball. I mean, just beautiful, beautiful swings. And I used to hit with a guy named Shannon Wilkerson who used to hit with Mookie going up through the Red Sox system. And he said Mookie used to think of the top of his barrel as a helicopter because he does this spin, and that would get him in the right position, to turn his barrel and kind of get that momentum with his barrel going back. I just thought that was so cool that no one's ever taught someone to swing a bat like a helicopter. But that was what you were saying earlier, is the more you learn about your swing, the more you can find, these core principles like you were talking about, but then relate them to yourself. I mean, that makes no sense to me. A helicopter, like, what does that mean? But then you see Mookie swing, you're like, oh, I kind of get it. And just hearing those stories, you're passing on something really important. By teaching these kids these core principles, and then they can make themselves better. So I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, I want to wrap up. I mean, honestly, I could just talk about hitting all day, every day. It's crazy because I just I'm not on the field anymore. And I'm on Instagram just watching videos of hitting over and over and over again. It's so interesting. But I want everyone to go show Matt love at Antonelli Baseball on Instagram. You're going to learn so much from his videos and what he's posting, and just maybe bring up topics you might not be comfortable with. But it's a great place to have a conversation about hitting. Definitely the YouTube. You have so many YouTube videos. It is a great place to learn hitting as well. More extended content, things like that. This whole podcast will be up on YouTube as well. Do you have any asks of anybody, that's listening right now, or is there any other places they can find you or get in contact with you?
No, those are the two best places. And if I'm actually probably a little bit more active on YouTube. So any of the videos, I've got tons of players that watch videos and have questions. If you comment right on the video, 99% of the time I'll see it and I'll be able to respond to you and help you out. So I would say, but same thing with Instagram. I try to get on Instagram as much as I can. But those are the main two spots that, I'm talking the most baseball stuff. So definitely check either one of those out.
Awesome. Well, this was so much fun. Every time we talk, I feel like I learned something, and I think, what you're doing is super important. So thanks for being on. It was a blast.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. See ya.
All right. See ya.
And